Hi guys, and today we're gonna be talking about the Egypt and those great buildings that we can see, and especially I'm gonna share my point of view on how it was actually built, and so let's see. I found those pictures. They were made in 19th century, and as you can see, we have a different type of construction on those columns in the back, and those in the front that are in the front. Okay, so they say that Napoleon was going to have a war in Egypt with those guys, which were called Mamluks, but they were recruited from the slaves that the Turkey conquers, and so I guess those guys were not just Turkey, but maybe they were even Russian, because they look like Russian Cossacks. And well, we're gonna talk about this in another one. So I don't think those guys would have to repair and reconstruct those columns, because they were warriors, and eventually they only were capable to destroy, just like Napoleon was. He was shooting those sphinx and pyramids with the rifles and guns. So when you check on those buildings, you better realize that it could be a flood, because we have so much evidence of flood. We have those sands, we have those mud, dry mud everywhere, and you have snow, little rocks and stones. So it might be a flood, or maybe it's the consequences of some unknown war, which was taking place in the 19th century. And this is a modern picture, and you see those columns are still the same, so they only got, fixed a little bit, but definitely they differ from all those in the back. You see, they make these concrete things to cover all those cavities and stuff like that. So these are definitely the signs of renovation, because and reconstruction of those columns. Maybe they were damaged, but by some physical objects after explosion or something like that. Because you see this, they have a random type of damaged structure. And we can see this one is pretty not very straight. Okay, this is the rest of them, and we see a whole bunch of writings on those columns, and the bottom of those columns is all scratched from those writings, and it may have contained some useful information, but right now it's destroyed, and we don't know what is written on those columns. Okay, you see the same on another one. And this is some ancient gravure, ancient painting, and we see a huge guy, which is a king, with those small guys over here. And you see this guy is standing, and he's not even taller, and this one is sitting. So definitely he was the tallest one over here, but maybe he is a little bit exaggerated because he has some crown and stuff like that. But still, it's a good comparison of a human height and a giant height. So, and he's watching those pyramids getting built or something like that, or maybe repaired, or some reconstruction is done down here, and we can see just a bunch of guys, doing something. So some strange things here, like a sun or something like that. Okay, so we go to the next one. There's a lot of strange things in Egypt, and we see stuff like this on the largest pyramid in Giza, which is definitely the sign of some reconstruction or something. And this is a painting of this same object, but in the past. We see this. This was a huge door, and it definitely was reconstructed by someone, so no one can come in except this little hole in here. But maybe after this, they just stuck this hole with another stones and just leveled up this place with some other stones, How can they do that? Because no one still gets the information about the way of construction. We see those pyramids, and they definitely, under the circumstances of the flood, which was everywhere on this planet in the 19th century, as I have told in those past videos that I've shown you on my channel. So you see ships are just passing those pyramids, and I wonder where those statues are right now. So this is definitely not the ones that I've shown you over here. It's not the one, but still they were located in Egypt on the Merit Lake, Meridus or something like that. So this is the way the Egyptians constructed this whole all those buildings, all those huge buildings. So you see, some guys are putting some stuff into this bucket, and they get those buckets to this guy, and those guys, pouring those buckets with some stuff, which is definitely looks like a concrete or something like that, into this huge box. You can see it better on this one. So see those guys preparing this concrete, and those guys getting this concrete to the bottom. This guy presses it. This one guy is doing something with his hands. This one doing with his feet. So he maybe is just jumping in this stuff so it won't freeze and dry out. So he pours this concrete into this bucket, and they pour it out into this form, which forms a huge block, and those blocks are used to cover up those pyramids. They're just external layer, and they measured those blocks, and they are from 2 tons to 30 tons of weight. So we see those flood consequences near those great pyramids, and this is just like neighborhood of those slaves who built or maybe lived near the pyramids, or maybe not slaves, maybe those Mamluks guys, but those blocks are looking like the pyramid blocks, and they're pretty big, but still they are smaller, and we see a whole bunch of renovation and reconstruction here. And you see those holes, they're closed because it's pretty deep over there, and you can, like, fall in some well or something like that. So you'll never get out by yourself. That's why it's pretty prohibited. And this place is non-tourist friendly. So look at those holes. They're everywhere. You can, like, stand here and just fall down. Maybe it's 10 or 12 feet deep, or maybe even more. Because you see how many mud is over here, and it was all cleared up by someone. See the layer of those mud. This is level, and it's about 12 to 20 feet deep, or maybe even more. And that's how they are doing. They are reconstructing with the same kind of stones, they're making the same shape, and they just doing their job to contain those pyramids in a good shape, so they just won't fall apart. That's why we have so bad brick laying and masonry here, because those guys are definitely not the builders, not the original builders of those pyramids. And you see this whole bunch difference with the blocks. Those are accurate and pretty solid on the first sight, and those are just old and falling apart blocks. This is an example of how deep the nearby territory is underground. It's buried with this mud and stones and all this composition. And this is what they do to tell the tourists that it was a huge village. They just put these stones on one another and just say it's like the X houses and stuff like that, X trees. So it's like streets of ancient villages and stuff like that. And that's the example of how many mud and what's the level of this mud to the Nile. This is the Nile River, and definitely we see this mud which was coming from the Sahara desert, so it looks pretty dry and it's falling apart, as you see. It's not a rock, it's not a solid rock, it's just a bunch of mud which is covered with the little layer of sand. And this is how the Egyptians built. They built those huge stones with the concrete technology, and you see how deep it's underground, and it's like 10 to 10 meters deep, so it's like 30 feet deep, or maybe even more. And this is an example of doors for the giant type of guys, and this is for slaves. So you see the difference in height, maybe 2 times bigger than humans. And this is a good example of concrete technology. You only can do it with the concrete if you have such a form which is definitely needed to more tightly toughen this building construction, so it can not be so loose, because they have like earthquake situations in Egypt and Africa, and I guess the original builders knew it, and that's why they made such a form, so one block can stand like an angle and be more tough to tighten this building. And that's the Cairo Museum. You see this concrete technology over here, and it's falling apart. This is not the solid rock. It was made like a sculpture. And that's how many mud you can see, how many sand and mud. And just a huge layer. Now it's all cleared up, so you can see those nice museums everywhere. And those pictures were made before the 2012, and you see those Egyptians were so uh, great bullshit believers, so they even made this warning that the Great Pyramid is closed for restoration on 12th and 21st of September 2012, which was supposedly the perhaps the end of the world situation, like mine said. That's just another picture of the Great Pyramid. And so it's another example of how different the technologies were. The original builders, they did always decent work, which is not comparable to this restoration and stuff like that. And this is a modern restoration. They just are not ashamed to pull some huge cranes and construction is on the way. And they never show you this one because it's a novel sarcophag or something like that. It's just a great job. If you can see, it's a huge block concrete technology and a concrete sarcophag, which is made by some form. Okay, and I'm gonna show you some more to prove that the concrete technology is probably better than this one, because this one doesn't match to the. They even tried to do this just like those slaves did, and they had failed because nothing was really this way. And you see those huge blocks with those cavities in it. It's a concrete technology, and those guys are trying to prove it. They took the samples of you see this it's just decent job, not even a knife blade or a shave blade can pass between those two blocks. And okay, let me just fast forward to the plate. Okay, so he was like knocking off this granite block, just a little piece, to check and make an analysis. And he's saying that it's composed of granite, sand, and some sand, actual sand, which is making it cheaper and more easy to construct for those who originally built it. And you can see it's a different structure on the inside and outside layers of those blocks, because the outside layers were more expensive and they probably did them more precise and more granite and stuff like that. They put more granite in this compound, and the inside of the block is always more cheaper, and it actually could have been done with more cheaper materials like sand and some granite, but in less percentage of compound. So that's how they practice, and it's an easy job. You can see you can make those blocks like a whole bunch of them in an hour, because we have a dry temperature and a very hot sun in Egypt. That's why we have such erosion on those blocks, because they were made of concrete and the outside layers are more decent than those are inside. Those are inside. They look just like the sea bottom stuff, because it's ruined with the winds and rains and stuff like that. So they took off this stone from the height of 30 meters or something like that, and it has some signs of concrete technology. When they did this, they used those let me see how it's named in how do you call it in English? A mat, some little mat, so it won't get sticky to those wooden constructions which are called formwork, concrete formwork. So that's why we have those signs. And why we don't have them on the bottom of the pyramid? Because the bottom of the pyramid gets sandblasted by those sandstorms that are actually ordinary for the Egypt, and they are pretty often to happen. So the top ones don't have such erosion, so they are not sandblasted, and you can see those marks on them. That's what I'm talking about, and that's why if you come to the top of a pyramid, you're gonna find a bunch of them. Okay, so and the inside of pyramid is definitely the great strange thing. How did they put those huge blocks inside this pyramid? They just did a concrete and they put it close to another, and that's why they're so precise and so um, uh, exact, or maybe accurate to one another, and that's my point. So okay, and it's not just a sensation or stuff like that, because we have those guys from France and United States who already did those exams and tests on those, and they know that it's a concrete technology and it was made just by hands of those guys. So it could have been done like it's shown on the picture. So that's why we have some strange forms everywhere, even in Peru and Bolivia and whatever. So okay, and not only it's explaining how those sarcophags were brought inside, because there's no way you could drag them through those tiny holes of pyramids. But if you drag some cans of concrete with you, some buckets, and you can do the same sarcophagus inside the pyramid while it is closed, and it has just a tiny exits, which is not comparable to the side of those coffins of pharaoh coffins. Okay, so I guess I've explained my point. So put some likes, share this video, and ask me questions in comments, and I'll be right back and answering those questions. So bye everybody.